All right, hello everybody. Today we're going to solve quadratic equations by taking the square roots. I don't know if you can hear, but I decided to play a little music in the background. That's the Commodores. Name of the album is All the Great Love Songs. I highly recommend it. All right, so let's get on to this solving by taking the square roots. The first thing we have to do is we're trying to get the thing that is being squared all by itself, or isolate the variable that is being squared. Well, if you look at number one, my n squared is all by itself. If you look at number two, my a squared has a number with it. On number three, my p squared has a number with it. And then on number four, my a squared has a 2 that's being multiplied by it, and then also a minus 12. So on all of these right here, we'll have to do some work to get the variable by itself, or the variable that's being squared by itself. But on number one, we will not. It's already by itself. So our very first step is, if I've got n squared equals 16, the inverse of squaring something is taking the square root. But if I take the square root of one side, I've got to take the square root of the other. When I take the square root of this side, it cancels out that squared. The square root sign and the squared cancel out, and that leaves me an n equals, and now we have to think about the square root of 16. If I were to ask you what the square root of 16 is, most of y'all would just tell me 4, and that is correct. But basically, if I've got n squared, I'm asking you, tell me all of the numbers that if I multiply them by themselves will give me 16. And you are correct, one of my answers is 4. But there's also another number that I can multiply by itself that gives me 16, and the answer is negative 4. So my answer to n squared equals 16, n equals 4 and negative 4. You might see that written like that, okay? So that's not hard, that's pretty easy. I think y'all can all handle that. If you look on your worksheet, that one right there is going to take care of problems 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So if you can do this one, you should be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So let's talk about the next one. 2a squared equals 18. Well, if you notice, my a squared is not by itself, so I've got to do something to get that a squared by itself. Well, there's really multiplication going on between that 2 and that a, so that's what I'm going to take care of first. I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to make that 2 go away, and now I'm left with a squared equals 9. So now I'm back to what my first equation looked like. I've got, that's supposed to be an a right there. I've got an a squared equals 9. I've got my variable being squared isolated or all by itself. So I'm ready to take the square root of both sides. Remember, that square root and that square cancel. That leaves me a equals. So the square root of 9 is 3, but remember, we have to say that it is both plus and minus 3. So my answers are 3 and negative 3. Let's see, if you can do that one right there, then you should be able to do, well, looking at it, we don't have one exactly like that on our worksheet, but you will use that part right there, that dividing by 2, when we talk about this number 4. So we'll just keep moving along. All right, so on number 3, here's my p squared. Plus 3 equals 4. My p squared is not isolated. I've got to get it by itself. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 3 from both sides. That's going to leave me p squared equals 1. Now I'm ready to take the square root of both sides. Remember, this square root and that square cancel. That leaves me p, and then what are the two numbers that I can multiply them by themselves to give me 1? And my answer is plus or minus 1. Again, if you want, you can write +1, -1. Either one of those would be correct. Okay? So if you can do that one, it looks like that one's going to take care of number 7, 8. Let me go back. Numbers 5, 7, and 8 on your worksheet. Yep, I think that's correct. 5, 7, and 8. All right, so now let's look at number 4. Number 4, you'll notice we've got 2 things on the left-hand side with our a squared. We've got a 2, we've got a -12. But just imagine that squared wasn't right there. So in your mind, cross that out. If I had 2a minus 12 equals 60, well, the first thing I would take care of is that -12. You're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. And that leaves me 2a squared equals 72. So now, if you'll notice, this right here looks a whole lot like what we had right here on number 2. I'm ready to just divide by 2. It doesn't matter what number's there, we're just going to divide by whatever's there. So I'm going to divide 2 from 2a squared. That's going to cancel my 2's. It's going to leave me a squared equals 36. I've got my variable squared isolated or all by itself. I'm ready to take the square root of both sides. Take the square root and the squared cancel. And a is going to equal, remember, not just +6, but -6 also. That little part right there is probably the biggest mistake that's made on these. You forget that your answer is going to be a plus and a -6. So if you can do number 4, that's going to get you through 9, 10, 11, and 12 on the worksheet, okay? So good luck, and remember, you can always message us on Canvas, and we can get back to you that way, or shoot us an email if you have any questions. We're also going to try to set up some Zoom meetings with y'all if needed. Thanks.